You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Testudo Times. I'm Brennan Weissel.
Sam Jane.
Michael House.
And before we get to our interview, we got to talk about the football game. Biggest win under Mike Locksley? I don't know. What do you guys think? Maryland takes down USC 29-28 in the game they probably should have lost. Mike, what do you think?
I mean, this is classic sports. Last week, everybody's saying the season is over. Fire Locksley. His job should be in question. Not coming out of the weekend, he has some breathing room now. Fans stormed the field. What an incredible win. What an incredible comeback. And it definitely was. But I think at this point, the biggest question is where do the Terps go from here? Now you're going on the road to Minnesota, a team that beat USC previously in a similar manner, and they played Michigan close. I think this game looks a little more winnable after the past weekend, but that's still a tough road game. Then you get the bye, and then you're going on the road again to number 1 Oregon. Might as well chalk that up as a loss. So, yes, every game from here on out is a must-win, but I think the Terps really have to look at this Minnesota game, this 3 weeks late for them, and really come out 1-1 with a win against the Gophers. That puts you at 5-4 with 3 games left. Then I'm thinking you really want to go 2-1 from there. Obviously, you want to go 2-1 because that gives you a winning season. But you got games against Iowa and Rutgers. Those are winnable. And then you got Penn State. Again, you can probably chalk that up as a loss. That being said, I think if they finish with anything less than 6 wins this season and they don't go 500, it still is a disappointing season for the Terps.
I completely agree with you. I think the line is at making a bowl game or not making a bowl game. Maryland gets to 6 wins, and you can say, you know what, they started pretty bad. They do what they do every year. They have a couple games in the Big Ten they should not have lost. And you're thinking to yourself, well, if they had won them, they're a top 25 team in the country. And because they this season have losses to Michigan State, Indiana, and Northwestern, 3 games they probably should have won. Indiana, yeah, whatever, they're the 13th best team in the country. Who knows if that's actually accurate. But if you win the Northwestern and the Michigan State game, this team and the outlook on the season look completely different. They're currently sitting at a bowl game. Obviously, they're not there, but the fight in the USC game is very promising. Some incredible plays from Billy Edwards, specifically a flicked pass, on a game-winning drive, stuff like that. That we had really not seen. We knew that this team could beat terrible opponents, Virginia and such, but that showed something, and I think it has to give Terps fans hope and excitement for the rest of the season and also for next season if Billy Edwards is the quarterback. Sam, you were up in the booth. You had a great view. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the thing that you talked about there, Brennan, the kind of fight that Maryland showed. I know it's all cliche and well, but adversity is genuinely something that matters in football, and Maryland hasn't shown a lot of it necessarily under Mike Locksley. They've lost 3 games in a row every year in his tenure, and they were staring that down the face again on Saturday, but they responded well. I think this quote from Billy Edwards really sums it up well. We've gone through a lot of adversity, and we've just tried to continue to push through, and finally be on the right side of the game when adversity struck. And they finally were. And I think that's part of that is USC losing the game, right? A fingertip away, and Maryland staring at 4 straight Big Ten losses. You're probably not looking at a bowl game again. As we talked about, and Miller Moss doesn't throw a terrible pass to Latavian Scruggs, who takes it all the way down into the red zone, then again Trojans probably win. But Maryland made those plays, and in Michigan State and Northwestern game, and even you could argue the Indiana game, they didn't, and they finally were able to kind of get one out. I think Locksley called a really good second half. There were some adjustments he made that I liked. Going for 2 down 14 was a smart play. I think that they showed a lot of kind of the fight that you'd want to see. Shows that they're not dead in the water. I do agree with Mike that I think that the road ahead now, it looks great for this week, but this game against Minnesota is a huge swing test. We talked about it before the season, guys, right? That we had higher expectations for USC, but if Maryland were to win that game, then going on the road the next week to a team that also beat USC at home and is good is going to be a tough task. So I'm really fascinated to watch this one this week. Just some stats on Minnesota. They have the second best passing defense in the Big Ten, so I wouldn't expect as easy of a time for Billy Edwards. Their quarterback, Max Brosmer, it's kind of a deviation for what we're used to from PJ Fleck teams. They're generally a pretty run-heavy squad. They still are, but Brosmer, a transfer, has done a really nice job as their signal caller. And the run game's been very mediocre, one of the worst rushing attacks in the Big Ten. So I think Maryland, if Maryland can force or can control explosive plays again, they did a much better job of that against USC. They should have a pretty good chance on the road. And if they win that one, then you start to feel pretty good about them making the postseason, which you told me that a couple weeks ago. I don't know.
You can make the comparison because, Maryland and Minnesota both beat USC in games that were at home and, in important games for both teams' seasons. But the thing, Maryland got USC at the perfect time. They had just played a game at home against Penn State, and a game like every loss, like for USC, they should have won. And USC should have beat Maryland. They did not look good in that game, and they still probably should have ended up winning it. USC, for most of the game, didn't look like they had much energy. They had a pretty strong second quarter with a ridiculous catch. But when you look at it, if Maryland, Sam mentioned it, if that field goal does not get blocked, USC wins the game. And you're looking at some plays and looking at them very differently. You're looking at the drive with about 2.5 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go, where Billy Edwards tries to throw the ball away and he gets sacked, and USC takes over at the 32. I mean, from that point on, USC should have won that game. You're looking at that. You're looking at the other interception Billy Edwards threw in the end zone. If Maryland does not win those games, you're looking at those plays very differently. And all that being said, the way Maryland played, they probably actually should have won this game by more, just because of the lifelessness that USC was playing with. I know I kind of talk in circles there, but basically the point I'm trying to make.
USC should have won, but Maryland also should have won. Probably not the best sign that either team played great.
Exactly. The point I'm trying to make is that Maryland got lucky, is my point. They made some clutch plays, but really they should not have been in that position.
Much more concise summary there, B. And I think
I'll work on that for the future. My bad.
I think lucky might be a little bit far, but I do think that there were some pretty significant warning signs in this game. Another special teams penalty that granted USC another opportunity, which they scored a touchdown on. Can't do that. A play at the end of the half where Billy Edwards, I don't know what happened, but fumble, turnover, no points, can't happen in that game. A rushing attack that ran for exactly 0 yards in the first half against the Big Ten's second to worst, or one of the worst rushing defenses. I don't know what it is after this week. Also not great. So I think that there were a lot of elements that kind of worry you as a Maryland fan, but I think the most encouraging thing is that they were able to kind of move past those and end up with a win. And that's where, if you're someone who's looking at this from as a kind of maybe long-term thing, I think that's pretty positive that they were able to deal with all that poor play and still pull out a victory.
Are you worried at all about the future of Maryland's rushing attack? I mean, Hemby only had 4
I've
carries.
been worried about Maryland's rushing attack since the beginning, since they haven't been able to run the ball forever, this whole season. I think Roman Hemby, he has had the weirdest career. I mean, if you think about it, guys, I was doing some digging. I mean, he goes from a 2-time All Big Ten honorable mention. Last year was supposed to be his big breakout season, right? It didn't really happen. He had a good year, not great. Antoine Littleton kind of dug into some of those carries. Now this year, I mean, it's supposed to be your crescendo season. He's talking about going to the league, big expectations placed on him, and it's kind of been a dud. He's had a couple of nice big runs, but then you see the game-winning touchdown drive, he catches a ball out in space, easily evades a defender, gets them down to the inside the red zone. This wasn't the last drive, the second to last one, sorry. And then the next play runs through a USC defender, scores on a touchdown. It's where was that? And I think they have talented backs. I think Hemby and Ray are both very, very good for what Maryland wants to do. It's just I don't think this offensive line has any sort of prowess in the run blocking game, and that significantly limits Roman Hemby and Nolan Ray's production. And if you can't run the ball consistently in Big Ten play, you're going to lose games. It's just too hard. Not every defense is USC.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened in Maryland's first 3 Big Ten games. Mike was talking about it, but
I was just this isn't meant to be a wet blanket on the Maryland. It was a great win. They got the job done. The fans deserve to celebrate it. They did something that they haven't. That's the biggest win under Mike Loxley. that it is a massive win. The recruits that were there, Malik was there. A lot of, highly touted guys were all in attendance. That's a big deal. But I think that there needs to be the flip side of the coin, which is like, okay, this one game, just like, losing to Northwestern, like we said, doesn't completely deserve Mike Locksley to get fired. On the other side, them beating USC shouldn't mean we just ignore everything that's happened prior to that point or all the warning signs that have come from it. Maryland beat a 3-4 football team. Okay, USC is better than their record suggests, but it shouldn't erase everything that's happened this season that's led to some of the concerns about the long-term future. That's all my point is. I think that you got to look at it from both sides and surrounding context with every result. I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, you mentioned it. We have to talk about it. Storming the field after the game, valid, not? Mike, you're shaking your head. Defend your take.
Not at all. USC is 3-4 when Maryland stormed the court against Purdue. Purdue was the number 3 team in the country. I think that's kind of a sign of where this program is at, that Maryland stormed the field when they just beat a team that entered College Park 3-3. But yeah, I mean, also valid at the same time. That was the biggest win Mike Locksley's had, other than COVID Penn State. So I don't really think that counts. And with the recruits there, it definitely helps Maryland. They got a pair of recruits on Monday who were at the game, twins from Maryland, in-state recruits. So maybe that played a role, seeing the fans and the energy in SACU Stadium. Maybe it didn't. But personally, I did not expect that to be a Storm Bowl moment.
Yeah. So on one hand, I hear Mike, right? Like, traditional powerhouse, you don't rush the field after beating 3-3 USC. But Maryland's not a traditional powerhouse. Like the whole act like you've been there before. Maryland hasn't been there before. Okay? So like, I don't blame the fans at all. I don't blame anybody for how they go about their fandom, but B, I'm especially not going to reprimand fans for rushing the field after you beat a national brand in prime time during homecoming. And an exciting game that the fans who stayed there, I feel like they deserve the leeway to be able to go and do as they please. So it was a really cool moment. I know the players probably will never forget it, and neither will the fans. So there's no harm in rushing the field. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was, there was nothing. There's no, trash thrown onto the field as there maybe were in other games this weekend. So I see no issue with it, and I think anybody criticizing Maryland fans for rushing should take a look at the surrounding context.
Yeah, if you look at the records, it is comedic, right? Maryland rushed the field against a 3-4 team. However, if you look at this game at the beginning of the year and you said, "Oh, Maryland's playing USC. USC was ranked at the beginning of the year," like fans knew going to this game when they bought their tickets, whatever, that hey, if Maryland wins this game, there's going to be fans on the field. Obviously, when it came time to play the game, both teams were 3-3. I know I tweeted it out, like no one was expecting that, but if Maryland blew USC out, Maryland won by 20 points, I don't think that would have happened. But the fact, it was the way they won the game that I think makes it acceptable. Maryland's down by 14 at 2 different points throughout the game. They have a crazy, blocked field goal and lateral, what a ridiculous play. Like, given those circumstances, I think it's completely valid. But on paper, it is hilarious. So, it's obviously something people are going to debate about. And yeah, Mike Locksley has very rarely done well in games like that, and now he finally won one, so I understand, but, Maryland fans cannot expect to be on the field every time they win a game they just, weren't favored in, because there's a lot of those. So I don't expect there to be a field storming in College Park.
How many times have they won a game they haven't been favored in, though?
That's my point.
Exactly. So for the first time, I don't blame it. I think it is an interesting, it is, like you said, Brendan, comedic that it was 3-3 teams, and also that half the field was filled.
And a lot of the students were gone because traditionally Maryland loses games like that. I don't think we'll see another field storming on the football field in College Park anytime soon. Basketball could be a different story, but we'll have to see. Speaking of, I would say that a court storming is most likely in men's basketball, but today we're here to discuss women's basketball.
I was going to say another USC team.
You don't know when the USC game is, though. Clearly, USC's over.
Oh, it's winter break. Unfortunate.
The adults can storm.
Yeah, we'll get all our faculty out there. But enough jokes about court stormings. Let's do what we were here to do from the jump. Talk to Saylor Poffenbarger, Maryland women's basketball newest transfer. Take it away, Saylor. Well, Under the Shell is pleased to have on Maryland women's basketball new addition from Arkansas, Saylor Poffenbarger. Saylor, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it, and
Yes.
excited to get to talk
Thanks
to you.
for having me.
I guess first off, we can start. You have some Maryland ties from Middletown. I want to ask you if you kind of obviously came back this off season, but how much was that like in your mind on the original recruiting phase when you entered the transfer portal the first time, or did it really come up this off season?
I think it like took being away to like, have an influence on my decision. Out of high school, I wasn't like too worried about distance or, being close to home. I kind of just wanted to like pick up at like the perfect fit or, in that point of time, it was my dream school. So I think being away, kind of you realize like the things you take for granted, whether it's going to my little brother's football game on a Friday night or like going home for family dinners. And I think just spending that time away made it a point of emphasis in the portal this time. So I think, obviously Maryland speaks for itself. It's an excellent program. Brenda's amazing and all of her staff. So I think it was just the best of both worlds. It's home for me and it's, has everything I want in a program.
What were your visits like with Maryland at that time? I assume you took at least one visit before you committed. What were your visits like? What sold you from those visits on Maryland?
My visit was actually like one day. So I feel like it was very much like business. I kind of like, I'm from Maryland. I visited Maryland 100 times before I committed the first time around out of UConn. So I think I kind of knew like all the things, but my biggest concern was my relationship with Coach B and like all of her staff and like the development. So I think just coming here and, our meetings were very intentional. She had a great plan. So it was really easy to kind of bring me home.
When you decided to transfer from Arkansas, you entered the transfer portal before. Did that kind of give you confidence that you knew what you were going to be navigating?
Yes, I think having the confidence, like coming off my season that I had the previous 2 seasons, definitely gave me confidence. But I think that the portal in general is a scary place. The portal now compared to when I went in before was two completely different things. I think the portal this year by itself was like a university because there's so many people. So I think, yes, but I also feel like coming off the season I had gave me the confidence going in.
Obviously, we talked a lot about you transferring, but I want to ask you about the new faces on this team. Season's almost close away. Fans got their first look at you guys the other day. But if you kind of offer some insight to them about what your team's style is going to be, how you expect to play, what it's been like kind of learning the new players, and who's been a standout, just kind of give us the breakdown from the offseason.
I think, Maryland's identity is always defend, rebound, run, and I think we play really fast. I think that's definitely going to be our identity this year. Defending and rebounding is a very big point of emphasis this offseason. But I think what makes us special is we have so many different choices. I think everyone, we have all these new players, but everyone has something different to bring to the table. And I think, bringing in all the experiences, all the different, transfers, being at different schools, playing in different situations brings in so much insight and maturity to this team. And I think just, we have a lot of people that have played in really tough games, made really tough shots, or, guarded their best player. So I think bringing in that is going to help us a lot. But I think as far as some dogs, I think Kayleen Smikle's a big standout. She's can score at all 3 levels. She can defend. Shy, obviously, she speaks for herself. But I think her just this year, I think she's been tested and she's done a great job leading us. And, kind of, I think it's difficult when you have been here and then there's 10 new faces and you kind of have to show everyone the ropes and kind of be that. But also Allie has done a great job. She's a great leader. She's someone I look up to a lot. She does all the right things. She works really hard. But I think just in our freshmen have honestly been probably the best freshman class I've been around. They work really hard. They do really good in school. They listen really well and they do all the right things. So I think everyone's just really hungry. They want to win. All the returners obviously weren't happy, satisfied with last year. I think all of us came in with a mentality to win. We all want to be pushed to that next level. So I think it's just kind of a great combination. We're all not satisfied and want the next thing.
A lot of new faces on the team, obviously, like you mentioned, but you guys went on a trip to Croatia the past summer in June. How did that trip with your teammates kind of help establish chemistry with a group that has, like you said, a couple returners, but then a lot of new faces?
It allowed us to like get to know each other on a different level. I've said this before. I think like when you're on the basketball court, like obviously you can get to know someone, but I think when you're, in a different country on a boat, it's like a completely different dimension. And I think us having that experience, whether it was, climbing 5 miles up to zip line or, riding on a bus for 5 hours, like we had all that time to get to know each other. And I think, it was a really special opportunity to take, and I think we took advantage of it. And I think you'll be able to tell on the court because we have so much chemistry off the court, and it's just kind of builds the trust on the court. And I think, when you know someone and love someone off the court, it kind of builds trust on the court. And we all, care a lot about each other. It's a very genuine group, and I think it's really special. Croatia, I think I give a lot of credit to Croatia.
Do you have a favorite memory from that trip?
I think we're all going along with the boat ride. It was fun.
And for the listeners who don't know, can you kind of describe the boat ride that you guys had?
Yeah, it was like a catamaran, and basically everyone was kind of able to show their personalities through music, their dancing, singing, whatever. And I think, it was cool because we weren't worried about getting to the gym at a certain time. We kind of all were just able to, let loose and kind of be ourselves. So it was really cool to see everyone's personalities.
On a trip like that, what's the balance of, obviously you're there to bond as a team, but also you have to play some basketball. What was that aspect like, and what was the training out there?
Obviously, like we're representing Maryland, so you want to put on a show for everyone over there. But I think Coach Freeze did a really good job of like emphasizing bonding. Like I think that trip was to bond, and I think yes, we got to the gym and we played games, but I think she did a really good job of when we weren't playing. We were having fun. We were, we could explore. We could go to the beach if we wanted, the pool if we wanted. Like I think I feel like she did a great job of like encouraging us to go out and encouraging us to spend time with our teammates and doing all the other things. And then, if we had a 6 o'clock game, okay, 4 o'clock we got on the bus and it was serious and we played and we didn't really mess around. But I think she did at least I really enjoyed not each day being kind of like work, but I think it was also a great balance. But I would say I feel like the main purpose of the trip.
I want to ask about kind of the mentality, because I think this is a really interesting thing to look at, and also something the coaches have talked about is some of the transfers you guys brought in, or a majority, actually come, and this is meant as no, but programs that weren't as successful, didn't win as much as what Maryland is used to. And that's not to say that the players aren't coming as winning players, but how, Saylor, for the kind of learning about the standards set at Maryland, I mean, you played at UConn, so you have a good idea, but how much different is it compared to other schools you've been at and what you've heard from your teammates?
I definitely think that competition is different everywhere. I definitely, obviously some players came from different conferences, but I think that schools just give players the opportunity to get to the next level. And I think sometimes, out of college, or out of high school, that might have been their best fit. But I think, they put themselves in a position to be at this level. And I think that everyone's done a really good job of proving that they're able to compete at the highest level. And I think, like you said, it speaks for itself. If they weren't ready, it would show. But I think everyone's experiences are a little bit different. So it's kind of interesting to listen to, everyone's, past schools, past experiences. But I think, yes, you could look at the conference and look at the weaknesses, but I think they've all set themselves up to be in a really great position. They all thrived at their last schools, whether that was player of the year, co-player of the year, all Big Ten, whatever it was, Kayleen, all freshman teams, everyone kind of, set themselves apart to prove that they can play at Maryland. And, upholding the standard is every day, the discipline, doing the little things, being consistent. I think everyone's done a really good job of.
I wanted to take it back a little bit. I know your mom is one of your biggest influences when it comes to basketball. She played collegiately at Missouri, I believe, and then she coached you in high school. What was that like to have your mom be a coach for you? Was that a little awkward? Was it like kind of had to feel out the relationship a little bit? What was that like?
The beginning was definitely tough. Me and my mom are very similar in the way that we have very high, like we're very passionate about what we do. And I mean, she has a very high basketball IQ. So at first we kind of butt heads a little bit. Never like with malintention, but just think like I was really immature. Like it was kind of a different situation. Like you said, it's unique. I was like, would come to practice and feel like she was mad at me about something I did the night before. But I think just sorting that out comes with the trust I have. I mean, my mom's played basketball like some of the highest levels, and she's been in a lot of situations that at that point I had hoped to be in one day. So I think just realizing that she's there for a reason, and I mean, I definitely had to like get a reality check and stop thinking that I knew everything, but I think it was cool and it's built our relationship now. I mean, I still call her after every game, after practices. Like, I mean, I value what she says a lot about basketball on and off the court. So I think, yeah, I mean, we had our little rough patch, but I think it kind of worked itself out. Definitely did with maturity, but it was a great experience. I mean, just having someone that's been through all those things and can help you even the recruiting process has been really great.
I wanted to ask you about the story behind your number. I know you've talked about in the past your younger brother passed away in a car accident. You kind of just for people who don't know, explain what their number means to you, the relationship you have with it.
Yeah, ever since I like got to high school, I was really young when he passed away. So like high school was kind of when I really understood what it meant to play for someone and like the importance that it was going to have on my life. And I think that he was a big why to me. So being able to have him in my uniform, I was number 4 the past 4 years or 3 years. He was 4 when he passed away. And then this year, 4's retired. So I had to get creative, and his birthday's in June. So it's the 6th month of the year. So just finding a way to have him a part of my uniform, have him a part of my daily. I think that, I mean, every day I wake up, he's my why. When I don't want to do something, I do it for him. We always joke around, and I say he would be an athlete somewhere, some shape or form, who would be playing sports. So I think just being able to represent him and like, kind of like spread his legacy to other people is really important to me.
Kind of staying with the trend of family, talked about your mom, talked about your brother, obviously playing much closer to home. Should we expect to see a lot of your family in the stands this season?
Yes, I've gotten messages and I'm like, I only have so many tickets. So some people are going to have to be buying some.
How do you think that this year's team, for fans that are familiar, your shooting obviously was a priority. Rebounding clearly was an emphasis. You do 2 of those things really well. How do you expect your role to kind of play out this season? Because you are a versatile piece, and the amount of wings that this team has is it seems like a lot. So where do you kind of expect to slot in?
I think it'll depend on matchups. They kind of swing me from 3 to 4. I think it depends on lineups and matchups. I definitely feel my advantage is probably more at the 4, being able to stretch the court. A lot of times it's probably against a big, which gives me the advantage. But I also think that's kind of what makes our team so unique, is we all slide into so many pieces that I think, yeah, it'll be probably different night to night, but I think it's going to be pretty dangerous. But I mean, I'm kind of like a go with the flow player. Wherever I fit in, I feel like I can kind of do whatever my team needs me. If they need me on the wing, I can handle that. If they need me to play inside, I can do that too. So, wherever she needs me to play is where I hope to slide into.
Yeah. And then really quick, how good is Shy Sellers? Like, where does she stack up with other players you played with?
I think she's great. I think she sees the floor really well. She's, she passes great. She can score at all 3 levels. I think it's going to be a really exciting season for her, and I can't wait. I think it's obviously a very important season to her with the goals that she has next. But I think, she has everything right in front of her, and I think she's great. I don't think she's really comparable. I think she's very different than a lot of players I've played with. But I think she's great. She's really fun to watch too.
Yeah. Saylor, we got one more question. It's kind of questions, but it's a little game. You guys went to Croatia. You talked about it. I want to see how well versed you are on the Croatian country and that type. So I'm gonna give you a little quiz,
Okay.
Croatian style. See how you do. First off, starting easy. What's the capital of Croatia?
Is it Zagreb?
I should have had these pulled up. This is my.
Yes, that is right.
You got it. There we go. All right, 1 for 1. 1 for 1. What body of water is right around it, lies to the west of it, that you guys were in?
I know this because they don't have sharks. Is it the Mediterranean Sea?
It is the Adriatic Sea.
Oh,
that's
I started off right. I started the word right.
That's
you started to say it, but
yeah, you got it. 2 more. Then, which Croatian, I think it's a national park or park, has the famous waterfalls? Did you guys, if you walk
We
by
went to it.
Oh, what's it called?
Rose, you can help me out. But we went to it and saw the waterfall. We got to go and walk around. It's like a 3-mile walk.
Okay. You get a half point for going, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll give her
there
what
she said it.
we have a live chat update. I think this might be the first time in Under the Show
Lit
history.
this
That is correct.
Yep.
all right, Rose gets a point.
Rose gets a point from the afterburners, but clearly Saylor did well enough, I think, to pass the Croatian colors.
We believe that you went. Yeah.
Say I've went twice.
And then lastly, Saylor, got any message for Terp fans? I mean, I know your guys' season's coming up. Short and sweet, what do you want to say to them?
I'm just really excited to see everyone. I think it's going to be a great year, and I'm excited.
And we were appreciative of you coming on to kind of give us the breakdown. So thank you so much, Saylor. Appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you.
Well, you heard it from Saylor, and if you haven't got enough women's basketball content, stay around, because that's what we're about to do. We're going to give you our entire comprehensive, full, in-depth breakdown that you're not going to find anywhere else about Maryland women's basketball. We'll start with the women's side, and then next week dig into the men's team, which should be a lot of fun. So first off, guys, let's do a little bit of an off-season breakdown, just kind of getting all that out the way about what happened with Maryland women's basketball. So first off, added 7 transfers. A big time ads from Brenda Fries and the staff. They had a lot of struggles last year, namely rebounding and physicality and depth. So they did a lot to address that. So some of the transfers who came in, you have Sarah Tabiasu, point guard from VCU, Saylor Poffenbarger, who you just heard from Arkansas, Christina Dulce from Villanova. She's another forward. You have Kayleen Smichael, Rutgers transfer, who obviously brings a lot of scoring. She averaged over 15 points a game in her 2 seasons at Rutgers. So a stud, obviously. And then Amari DeBerry is the other one of note, another forward from UConn. So didn't play a lot, but brings some depth. They lost Faith Masonis, who exited. Riley Nelson, who went to Duke, big loss there, and then some other depth pieces decided to depart. So that kind of breaks down the offseason. And Brendan, what do you think about the ads?
Yeah, you laid them out. It's absolutely a positive. If you look at where this team was last year, that Iowa State game that feels like it was forever ago. That Maryland and Maryland fans and the team was disappointed. I think Saylor even talked about it. She wasn't on the team, but she mentioned that the other players kind of had a sour taste in their mouth. And Brenda Fries, I think for the first time in the NIL transfer portal era, has a transfer portal class that she is very excited about and thinks that will make a huge difference. I mean, the whole roster is pretty much retooled. The whole starting lineup isn't necessarily, but bringing in that many transfers, you have to worry about the cohesion of the team. They went to Croatia. That's great. But, being able to be best friends with somebody is helpful and it's great. And you want to have that. But that doesn't mean you're going to be able to put the ball in the basket at any higher of a rate than any other team. So we'll have to see. And I think they're lucky with their schedule that they have before conference play. If they had the schedule they had last year, it'd be a much different story. Mike, what are you looking at?
Yeah, 2 of the biggest issues last year was their interior play. They didn't really have a true center. They still don't really have a true center. But they did add someone who can beef up down below. Christina Dulce, excellent rebounder last year. She had 9.4 boards per game, was the Big East co-defensive player of the year. Also got 4.7 offensive boards last year. So have her inside. Maybe that allows Allie Quebec, who was playing out of position last year, had to go inside, play a lot of center for them. Puts her a little more outside, more in a scoring position where she can be more comfortable. A lot of the time last year, she was not taking the shots as she would at Towson, wasn't really playing like the player she was. She attempted nearly 60 less three-pointers than she did in her final season at Towson last season with Maryland. Obviously, you saw in that Iowa State game, she went 7 for 8 from three.
All-time performance. All-time.
All-time performance. So making that addition, hopefully that allows Quebec to play more comfortably and more naturally. And then not having to lean on Shy Sellers as much for the scoring. You just saw Def added in droves this past offseason by Freese. Like you said, Sarate Biasu was the A10 player of the year last year, 16 points per game. You add her, and then you got McDaniel, who had an incredible sophomore year jump last year. Expect even more going into her junior year. Those two in with Shy Sellers in that backcourt should be a really good trio for Maryland.
Yeah, Quebec's somebody that Brenda Freese singled out, and a lot of players that I talked to at Media Day said that she had made a ton of improvements. So I would expect a big jump from her. Let's break down what we think our projected rotation will be. Kind of a look at what it's going to be. I think that they have a lot of different options, and this could easily change. But Brenda said she knows her starting lineup right now. This would be my best guess at it. I would say Sarate Biasu, Shy Sellers, Bree McDaniel, and then either it kind of comes down to, I would say, Saylor Poffenbarger if she's healthy, and Christina Dulce if Saylor is not fully healthy. I know she had a little bit of an ankle sprain. Then you would look at, I think, a Dulce and Quebec front court. So those are the five. But then I think coming off the bench, Brendan, it's even more fascinating. You got the freshmen, you have the other transfers. Kayleen Smichael play a big role. Who do you think are going to see significant time?
It's hard to know because you never, with Brenda, like you just don't know if freshmen are going to play. And, historically, you'd say they probably aren't going to play very much, despite how good they may be and how high of a prospect are. The past 2 or 3 years, at least in our time covering this team, it's been tough. I do think Allie Quebec will probably come off the bench, but she's the exact, sixth woman that this team needs, and filling that role. We talked about it. If she, brings kind of that experience, or kind of carries over from her last game last year into this season, and like you said, definitely going to be a player to watch. So we'll have to see. I think we're going to see a bunch of players in the first 4 or 5 games play a ton of minutes, maybe excluding the Duke game, and then by the time we get to Big Ten play, we'll have a much better idea of who's the starting lineup is going to be, especially as players who were injured come back. What do you think, Mike?
One person we haven't mentioned yet that I do want to talk about is Emily Fisher. She didn't have too big of a role at the beginning of the season last year, but as injuries piled on, players were out, Fisher got more of a spot in that rotation coming off the bench. Appeared in 33 games as a freshman, which is, we've talked about it, it's rare under Brenda Freese that a freshman gets to play a lot. She played a whole lot at the end of last season, and I think she'll have a big spot on that bench for Maryland.
Yeah, if Emily can figure out a consistent jump shot, she's a serious piece, because her versatility as a defender and also as somebody who can kind of play the glue woman role, just doesn't need the ball a lot, and on a team that has a lot of dominant ball options, McDaniel, Sellers, Tabiasu, Smichael all need the ball to score, or not need, but want the ball to score. She, I would think, slots in really nice if she can develop even I would say 33% or above jump shot. That makes the defense respect her. Let's keep it going with the questions, guys. I'm going to give you some variables, and just as we do with season previews, kind of give me your thoughts. I'm gonna start with by conference play, over under 9.5 rotation players that are playing. Silence from the crowd as they look at the roster.
I have to count the number of players. This is not like it's not something I had thought about that much.
You said 9.5.
Yeah, let's drop that to 8.5 and say like serious minutes, 10 plus.
Under.
I'll say over.
Defend your point, Michael.
All right. Do you want me to just list them out for you?
Go for it.
DeBerry, McDaniel, Dulce, Quebec, Poffenbarger, Fisher, Smichael, Tabiasu, and Sellers. That's 9.
Brendan, why do you think it's only 8?
The over 10 minutes tripped me up. I mean, you are right that they probably would be playing a ton of people. Playing more than 10 minutes, I just think is unlikely. But the issue with this team last year, by the end of the year, was depth. I mean, I think they played this. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they only played 7 people in the tournament game, right? Like they were just so depleted by the end of the season. So Brenda's obviously going to be cycling through a lot of different players. But I think by the time you get to conference play, they're going to have kind of their 8, or I guess, yeah, eight main players that they will be going to. So I don't know if it's even fair to say who exactly that will be, because it totally depends on how the first part of the season goes.
I like that. I would probably stick at the over. I think this team has a lot of rotation members, but I can see, Brenda generally plays a shorter bench too, so I could easily see it being an 8-woman rotation. Next question: over under 1.5 conference or non-conference losses that the Terps suffer. This is a little tricky because you look at that early slate and you think, oh, like they only play one ranked team. But then surprising sitting down for you all the way in January 20th is the number 4 team in the country, Texas. So, Mike, over or under 1.5 non-con losses?
I think they'll split that. You take one against Texas, one against Duke, where you drop one of those. But I mean, Maryland's picked up wins in the past against ranked teams, so I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again, especially since this year's group is way deeper than last year's.
I think Maryland wins the Duke game. I think I think at that point in the season, playing a home game, they're going to be all right. The Texas game, I would not be as confident about. A game slapped in the middle of Big Ten play, and at that point in the season, when you only have you're kind of halfway through Big Ten play, a little bit less, like you're not really thinking that much about other teams. It's just such a weird time to play a non-conference opponent that I think it'll be overlooked by Maryland, especially when you're fighting for Big Ten standings. It's like, yeah, the game matters, I guess, for where you're going to end up in NCAA tournament rankings, but I don't think it's really a game that players care that much about. So I don't know, but if they take that Duke game and they start the season with a pretty hefty win streak, I guess Syracuse is also going to be a decent game. They have to go up to New York. But yeah, I would say under 1.5.
Okay, last over-under I have for you guys before we get into some takes. Over-under 2.5 players that Maryland gets on an all Big Ten team. Last year they had 2. They had Jakia Brown-Turner and Shai Sellers. Bree McDaniel was an honorable mention. It's not actually 10 players that make the first and second team, which old man take is ridiculous. It was like 16 last year. So over under 2.5 that make the first or second team.
I can definitely see over with that. I mean, you're bringing in players who were the player of their year in their respective conference last year, like Sarah Tabiasu. And then you add in Bree McDaniel. She honestly should have been on that list last year of her performances for Maryland. And then you also got Shai Sellers, of course. Then you add in Kaylin Schmeichel, players like that. Saylor Poffenbarger, like see what type of role she has. I mean, there's just so many pieces on this team that we just don't know what their exact role is going to be, but all of them could be all Big Ten players.
Yeah, Mike's right. There genuinely could be 5 of them. I mean, there are 5 of them on Maryland's roster, probably. But the thing is, with the way minutes and points and playing goes, it's not actually possible. Like the max Maryland could probably have is 3, but you have to also think about the new teams in the Big Ten. That's going to take a couple spots away. Maybe they'll make it they'll make it 25 players now. I don't know, but I would say under.
Okay, I feel good about my lines. We've had differentiating answers here every time. This is good. Now we're going to get different answers for another reason. I want you guys to give me not your hottest take, but just a take you feel the most confident in about this year's Maryland women's basketball squad.
I'll give you maybe a bit of a hot take. I would say by December 15th, Maryland is ranked in the top 8 in the country. They have a win over Duke, and they're undefeated.
So they're just kind of cruising through non-con play. At that point, their 2 tough games will be Duke and Syracuse. So
yeah, they'll be 10-0, and then they'll be ranked, and then they'll start Big Ten play, and it won't be as pretty.
I think personally that you could extend that to January 8th if you want to get.
You really could actually, yeah. Although they may drop a Big Ten game earlier, but they have a lot of home games.
Yeah, that means you're looking at a top 5 potential Maryland USC meeting in College Park, and that would be. I might fly back from winter break just to go to that game.
The past 2 seasons, it's been so unfortunate that big Maryland basketball games at home have been over winter break. That USC game this year is a huge bummer.
Yeah, definitely.
And it definitely does not help Maryland.
No.
I could see them finishing top 3 in the Big Ten. I know they were finish 4th, I believe, but I can see a top 3 finish. I mean, UCLA, they'll probably finish above Maryland. USC, they'll probably finish above Maryland. But then, I mean, Indiana, Ohio State, Nebraska, I think Maryland has a better roster than those 3. And Maryland took a game against Ohio State last year. Did they take a game against Nebraska? Do you remember?
They dropped both their games against Nebraska.
And then
I don't think Nebraska missed a 3 in that Big Ten tournament game.
Yeah, that was crazy to watch.
And then they dropped both to Indiana, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't think they're going to get swept by a single. Or no,
Well,
they're not playing an opponent twice.
They play one team twice. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I can see them finishing top 3.
Sticking with the theme of general Big Ten standings, there are currently 6 teams in the Big Ten that are in the top 25. Do you think that number is the same, greater, less at the end of the season?
Probably less. Then you got the teams in conference going up against each other, bringing each other down with losses. So I can see that happening.
Yeah, I think the fact they play one team is really interesting. And it'll be a fascinating Big Ten race. USC and UCLA add a lot to it, and Maryland's going to have to do what I think is my confident take. This team is going to be the best 3-point shooting team in the Big Ten. I'm going to say they shoot above 38% as a rotational group. As a team, it's probably around 37, 36. But I think that this unit has a lot of really good shooters. Tabiasu is a phenomenal 3-point threat. Saylor can shoot. You add Quebec if she continues to take a leap. I think Sellers' jump shot looks good. And then Bree McDaniel, people have talked about all she's been doing this summer is shoot. She knows she needs to improve on it. The bench pieces they have all can light it up from 3. So I think that this roster can really spread it on the perimeter. And I think they're going to play very fast. That was the other thing that they told me, was the transition game that we're used to seeing under Brenda Frese is going to get back to kind of the pace. And that leads to more 3s. So I think they're going to be a really, really fun team to watch. Shoot a lot of 3s, run a lot of transition, and should light up Xfinity Center. So that's my confident prediction. And then we'll wrap it up, guys, with 2 really quick ones. Team MVP. We cannot all say Shy Sellers, so come up with something different. And then what's your guys' record prediction will be within the Big Ten? Brendan, we can start with you.
All right. Team MVP, I'll take Cheyenne Sellers because I'm going first, and I think that's a pretty easy and obvious pick. She's so used to the Big Ten. She was such an important piece for this team last year. She's going to be the leader and the heart and soul of this team. I just don't see anybody else being the most valuable person on this roster. And, she might not be the highest scorer, but I think in terms of distributing and the way she knows the Big Ten, she'll take it on.
I believe Sam said don't pick Shy Sellers, but I'll let that slide.
She said don't. No. He said don't everybody pick her. Okay. Right? Is that right?
I'll take Bree McDaniel. Again, going back to last season, she was a player that was being hyped up to have that second-year jump, and then she still exceeded all expectations, 14 points, 4 boards a game. Now she's coming back with that experience where she was the number 2 at times, and now she can just flourish next to Sellers. She's more comfortable in that role. She's got other shot creators next to her, and she's an excellent shot creator herself. Doesn't really need to have stuff drawn up for her. She can drive right down the floor, go to the basket, put her head down. And if her shot is there, like you said, she's been working on it, then that's just a whole nother level to her game. So I think Bree McDaniel could be the team MVP.
I'm going to go with my MVP is Kayleen Smykel. I think she's not going to necessarily start, but I think she's going to be a bench scorer that Maryland hasn't had in a long time. Kind of the role that I think maybe some expected Lavender Briggs to play, including myself. I think she's going to just be a better version of that, a really, really good scorer. And I think she's going to be a really nice bench piece for and maybe even start for Brenda Frese. So I think she'll slide in really nicely here. And she's a multi-year transfer. So next season, I think she could kind of fill the role that Sellers is leaving as the go-to scorer. And then my record prediction in the Big Ten, I'm going to say they either go 13-5 or 14-4. The schedule actually sets up really nicely. They only have to play Ohio State twice, and I think Ohio State's a little overhyped right now. So I think that that's a good look at Maryland's schedule. And I think that this team has the talent. They have more depth than last year. So I'm looking at probably that would put them at a 2 or a 3 seed in the Big Ten tournament, or in the Big Ten tournament probably. And then you're looking at a 3 or 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. I think you're right back on track with where you need to be. And then Brenda, in March, man, we know it. It generally leads to pretty good things for the Terps. So it's going to be an exciting year, and I can't wait to see them tip off here in the coming week.
Record prediction, we got 18 games. I'm going to go 14-4. Sam pretty much laid out what I was thinking, but I think they'll split against Ohio State, lose that USC game, and then they kind of have that tough stretch where they have to play Texas, like I mentioned. I think they'll drop a game in there, and then I think they'll lose a game down the stretch to Indiana. So that's my record prediction. Let's see what happens.
I'll go 15-3. Let's say losses to USC, UCLA, and then on the road at Indiana.
Mike lays it out. He's feeling good about the women's hoops team. It's a good time to be in College Park for fans. Brendan, well, take us through what happened around the rest of the sporting world.
Yeah, it's a decently packed week for Maryland around the rest of the country. Men's soccer had decent week as well. Just lost on Monday, just tied on Monday night. It kind of felt like a loss with an injury to Leon Cool and Colin Griffith coming out in the second half, but a tie. Maryland tied in the top of the Big Ten standings. So they just also did a couple different rankings in the top 10. So men's soccer looking very good. Women's soccer had 2 losses. They have one more game this season against Rutgers. Then their season's over. We probably won't talk about them again. We've pretty much talked about them enough already this year. On to field hockey and volleyball. Field hockey had a 1-1 weekend, and now they have 2 non-conference games heading up, so not that important. And then for volleyball, also kind of in the middle of that Big Ten season, right? They lost a game to USC at home, and they traveled out to Illinois, where they ended up losing that game as well. They have 2 more games this weekend, both on the West Coast, late night games. They're going to be tough. Anytime you have to travel across the country, I would expect Maryland to drop those games as well. So, volleyball currently sits at 1-7 in conference. It's the same story with volleyball every year in conference. So it's not looking great at this moment. But yeah, that's a quick recap of all the other sports. We're going to talk about them a little bit next week, but we'll mainly focus on basketball. And then by that time, we will be able to kind of break down some of the tournaments that are coming up. So men's soccer will be the team to talk about in upcoming weeks, and it's going to be exciting. They have a real chance to win the tournament, and that's the NCAA tournament and the Big Ten tournament.
You laid it out for you there. We'll go on back to football for our college football picks segment. I'll start it off. An interesting week. Our leader had a tough time going 1-2. I want to hear all the talk this week. So, Michael, I'm going to get back on track here and catch up to you again. I'm going to start with Boise State -3.5 versus UNLV. Heisman favorite. Give me Ashton Jeanty. Nebraska +25.5 versus Ohio State. And then Miami -21 versus the Seminoles. Those are my picks for the week. I'm feeling pretty good about them.
Yes, it was a tough week, but like you said, I am the leader right now. So we're going to take Colorado, favored by 4.5 points versus Cincinnati.
I will be at that game, I'd like to add.
There you go.
Are you going to be wearing a Blues for Michael House shirt? Please do. I'll buy it for you.
I'll be wearing an I ain't hard to find shirt. No kidding.
After that, I've picked Bama the past 2 weeks now because I thought they were going to rebound. I think they're going to rebound this week against Missouri. Favored by 13.5 points. Not my favorite pick, but at some point they're going to have to get back on track. I think this week could be it. And then Pittsburgh favored by 5.5 versus Syracuse. I really don't have any reason to pick this game, but my friend goes to Pittsburgh and I wanted to pick them.
Well, that's very nice of you, Mike.
Sweet, Mike.
I don't know. I don't know if it's really even worth including me in this segment anymore. It is. It actually is. If you're thinking about gambling, you should just take the opposite of what I take, and that's probably smart. You would definitely be in the net positive if you took the opposite of my picks this year. It's been really
this message every week. People know
it's been
how bad
so sad. It's been so sad. I just feel so bad for myself. All right, let me tell you my picks. I have no explanation for them. USC -14 against Rutgers. There's no way USC loses another game, and definitely not to a team from New Jersey. Indiana -6.5 against Washington. Supposedly Indiana is really good. They're 13th in the country. Vanderbilt +18.5 against Texas. Vanderbilt has played close games throughout the entire season, whether they've won or lost them. They obviously lost to Georgia State, but they beat Alabama, and Texas is coming off of that loss. But Vanderbilt's been strong all year. That's all I got for my picks, but something I am good at is Terrific Terp. So let's do that. This week's Terrific Terp is one of the best to take the field under men's soccer coach Sasha Swarovski. Taylor Twellman almost never played professional soccer. He grew up in St. Louis and was a star athlete, specifically soccer and baseball, which is a pretty unlikely duo. He was offered a contract by the Kansas City Royals, stayed close to home, but he decided to head to College Park to play soccer instead. At Maryland, he focused just on soccer, and he excelled. He played for the Terps in 1998 and 1999 before turning pro. During those 2 seasons, he finished as second-team All-American and first-team ACC in both, as well as a finalist for the Herman Trophy, which is for the best player in college soccer. He did that in 1999. Despite only playing 2 seasons, he finished his career top 10 in goals, assists, and points. Who knows what would have happened if he played all 4 years? After the 1999 season, he played professionally in Germany, but decided to head back to the States in 2002 for the MLS Super Draft. He played on the New England Revolution until 2010 because his career was cut short due to head injuries. He was one of the best goal scorers during his time with the Revolution, winning the 2005 MLS MVP. Twellman was also a part of various U.S. men's national teams rosters during his playing career, and after soccer, he stayed around the game, focusing attention and research to head injuries in the sport. He also joined the media world, serving as a soccer analyst ever since he retired. He is now a part of Apple TV's MLS coverage. This soccer great is this week's Terrific Terp.
And another terrific Terp from Brendan to cap off the episode this week. Again, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on YouTube. Thank you for listening.
Guess what? You've got Under the Shell Podcast. Nobody does it better.